Here are the responses that you should have had for the Do It Now activity. What can you recall about question 4? So number 1, what is the focus of the question? It is evaluation. You're going to be using parts of Q2 and Q3, language and structure, as well as your own opinion to form a response to a statement. Should you reread the extract before answering the question? In this case, no. Just reread the section that they've drawn your attention to. Is the question focused on just one section of the text? Yes, it is, and they will outline which bit you are looking at. Number 4, list as many features you are to identify and comment on as possible. Looking at language devices such as simile, metaphor, violent verbs, adverbs, as well as the structural devices such as time, changes in perspective, opening, the beginning, etc, etc. So number 5, how many marks is this question worth? It's worth 20 marks. It's a huge part of this exam. It's worth half marks on section A, and it's also worth a quarter of the marks on the whole paper. It is a massively important question. How many minutes should you spend on this question? At least 20. Can you disagree with the statement? Yes, but use caution with this. You must make sure you have a coherent response, and very few students are able to do this successfully. So our advice is that you should, on the whole, agree. Okay, so this is the overview of question 4 for the walking talking mock, and then you are going to go as you have been doing and responding to this question on the assignments tab. So just to remind you, Q4, you should reread the section of the text indicated and then answer the question. It's worth 20 marks. You're spending about 20 to 25 minutes on this, depending on how long you spent on other questions and on the reading. It's the most important question on the reading section. Ensure you prioritise this question. You cannot get a grade 4 really on this paper without answering this question. So just a reminder of what the text is. If you want to look at this again, it's on your extract, but you're going to be evaluating something to do with this extract. Okay, so this is the question. A student said, in this part of the story, where Pete and Potempa decide to leave their friend Mick Burke on the summit, it is clear that they made the right decision to abandon Mike on the summit, even though it is clear that they would be leaving him there to die. To what extent do you agree? In your response, you could consider Pete and Potempa's decision, evaluate how the writer makes it clear that Pete and Potempa had no other option, support your response with references to the text. So you're evaluating that statement. Pete and Potempa had no choice but to leave their friend up on the summit to die. So you are going to agree or disagree with that statement. And as I referenced before, it is actually incredibly hard to disagree with this. They would certainly have died. So if you disagree, you're saying that Pete and Potempa, and remember Potempa is an employee, he's not a friend of them, should have died alongside him as well. Okay, so you should spend 20 minutes on this question. You must comment on a minimum of 4 different examples. So what you're trying to do is saying it's clear that they made the right decision because of this language device. It's clear that they made the right decision because of this structural device. It's clear because of this. Okay, so you have to identify language and structural techniques. You're looking at a good 4 to 6 paragraphs for this one. Okay, detailed, analysing language and structural choices. Okay, usually you should only use the section you're instructed to use. However, today we're going to let you use the whole extract because we're being kind to you. Okay, so in the chat, I want you to post to what extent you agree or disagree with the statement. So looking at it again, a student said, in this part of the story where Pete and Potempa decide to leave their friend Mick Burke on the summit, it is clear that they made the right decision to abandon Mike, even though it is clear they would be leaving him there to die. Okay, off you go. So, how do you answer question 4? You read the extract carefully. You should have already highlighted effective sentences, words and phrases, and structural techniques in Q2 and Q3. So this will help you answer the question. You should use a method-based approach. So, e.g., the writer uses the word or phrase, or the writer uses the language technique or the structural technique to show. Explicitly refer back to the question. You should be saying the right decision at the start of every paragraph. Pete and Patemba clearly made the right decision because of this. Pete and Patemba clearly made the right decision because of that. You have to be referencing the word decision. Have I said decision enough? You have to reference the word decision. Think about why they have chosen these language techniques and the effects on you as the reader. Choose a minimum of 4 points from the extract and write them in chronological order, tracking the extract. You should zoom in on the connotations of these words and remember that the best answers are detailed and perceptive, so they pick up on interesting things, they pick up on unique things, things that are not necessarily obvious. So here's an example that we've looked at before with the Alex Cold extract. So I agree that Alex is struggling to cope with his mother's illness because he's angry with everybody. His father's, his sister's, life in general, even with his mother for getting sick. This suggests he is desperately looking for someone to blame and isn't dealing with the situation very well at all. The writer shows this through dialogue when Alex steps to his sisters. Rather than trying to reassure them like an older brother should, the writer also shows Alex isn't coping by comparing what his mother used to be like before she became ill to what she's like now. The metaphor, little more than a silent ghost, suggests she has become an invisible presence in the life of the family. Okay, so you've got there that this person is, I agree, and I know without even looking at the question here, it's the statement must have been about whether Alex is able to cope, okay, because he's referenced the idea of coping more than once. So the writer is showing that Alex is struggling to cope because he's angry. The writer is demonstrating that Alex is struggling to cope because he compares what his mother used to be like. Okay, so we've got those things. The quotations are judicious and they're short. They're embedded within the sentence, and there's clear identification of language and structural techniques. I can see dialogue, structural. I can see metaphor, the comparison, the angry vocab, and I can see what the effect of the language and structural techniques on the reader. Okay, so you have got to write your response saying the writer has shown it's the right decision because of these language and structural techniques. Okay, so what you're going to do is you're going to have a go at answering that today. So you're going to go to assignments tab. You're going to spend at least 20 to 25 minutes on this question, and you are proving that that statement is correct, that they were right to make that decision. Off you go.